All right. Wonderful to see you all. Welcome, welcome back, most of you, um, to Dharma Talk Saturday here at Flying Cloud. We got some new faces here I see this morning, which is always wonderful. And we are going to continue our exploration of the verse for opening the sutra. I'll talk about 25-ish minutes or so. We'll see if we make it all the way through. We talked about it last month, and we'll talk about it again today. And depending on how efficient I am, uh, we'll we'll either finish today or we'll go another little bit. But this is a really beautiful verse, and I wanted to start talking about this because this one's been close to my heart for a long time. And the other reason is I'm a great believer in gatha practice. Some of you know that word. Gatha, Gatha, is something from the Buddhist tradition, short verses that are recited um, usually in accordance with an activity. There's a getting out of bed gatha, a toothbrushing gatha, a head shaving gatha, a putting on the robe gatha, a little verses that we recite, that we memorize, and we say them generally in a monastic setting before you do an activity to help you remember that the thing you're about to do, the activity you're about to engage in, is meditation. What you're about to do is zazen, right? And so to have a specific little verse before a specific activity helps us to remember, oh, this is zazen taking a very particular form. This is what meditation looks like when it's me getting out of my bed. This is what meditation looks like when it's me putting my feet on the floor for the first time. This is what meditation looks like when it's me leaving my dwelling. There's a leaving the dwelling gatha, or washing my hands, or right. And so it's kind of cool. It's just a way of extending kind of that presence that we cultivate so carefully on the cushion into everyday activity. Carries us throughout the day, right? And as I'm sure all of us or most of us here know, meditation especially in the Zen tradition, is not in any way separated from everyday activity, right? It isn't the thing you do for half an hour and then you go back to being an absent-minded knucklehead. It's just, oh, right now meditation looks like sitting up straight and sitting in, this certain way and breathing in a certain way in between bells. That's what it looks like right now. And in a little while, it's going to look like standing up and putting on my shoes. And then meditation's going to look like me answering the phone, and then it's going to look like me raking the yard, right? So these little gathas are oftentimes posted, either memorized or posted, and sometimes both, in monastic settings around objects, the doorway, the kitchen, the over the sink in the bathroom, by the shoe stall, stuff like that, to help us remember to stay present. And this verse is essentially the we're about to listen to a talk gatha, right? There's a bunch of us in the room, a bunch of us in the meditation hall, and we're all about to listen to a talk. And it's a great reminder for everybody listening, as well as for the person, whoever this is, delivering the talk, what it is we're about to do. And because this particular gatha, and especially the translation we're using of this gatha, it doesn't actually say talk. It just says Dharma. It makes it really, I don't know. I think it's one of my favorite sort of universal gathas because it doesn't have to be specific to I'm about to hear a talk. It could be used for just about anything, right? Again, because of Zen's understanding of the boundarylessness of Dharma, Dharma isn't, you know, limited to the Thich Nhat Hanh book you're reading, or the Pema Chodron talk on the podcast you're listening to. It isn't limited to the Zen Center or the Dharma Hall. It's all things everywhere, right? The boundarylessness of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are all acknowledged, and we're reminded of that many, many, many times in our tradition. So this verse, um, I think makes a great, I think it makes a great gatha. And for those of you who are into such things, and I know there are some of you here, this is a great one to write out or print out and to put up someplace. Put up someplace. I really like gatha practice. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but for a long, long time, many years in my early practice, and even still now, there's one on my door frame here next to me. Taking the first step of the day is the one that I have posted up here. But for a long time, I had these little verses posted throughout my home to help me, right? Really kind of plant the seeds more deeply into my life. And this is one of those verses that you could pretty much put anywhere, and it works because wherever you are, whatever it is you're doing, you're in relationship with the Dharma, right? So it's kind of cool. We talked last time about its origin, the Empress Wu Tian, and how she found this in the how she compiled this verse and found its origins in the Pali canon, all the way back to the original scriptures. And then we talked a little bit about how we use this verse in a Dharma setting, and so I want to talk this time about the themes of the lines, right? The themes that I see anyway that are suggested in the four lines. So let's start, if we can, by reciting this together. Again, as always, we acknowledge the wonderful gift of the connection of Zoom and the limitations of the connection of Zoom. We can't hear each other. You get to hear me, I get to hear me, but I don't get to hear you. At least not yet. Someday Zoom will catch up with us. We'll be able to hear our voices, our collective voice in concert. But for now, we can just know that we are chanting together. Let's start by reciting this, and then we'll dive in. So the verse for opening the sutra. So rare to touch a deep and subtle Dharma, having it to see and hear, remember and become. We vow to taste the truth that is right here, and yet so far beyond words. Mm, thank you for that. It is beautiful, isn't it? It's an expression of vow, of course. Um, and as we talked about last time, its intention, like with any um, gatha formed verse, is to put us in right relationship with the thing that we're doing, the thing we're about to engage in, right? I'm coming into this Dharma hall and I'm vowing to taste the truth. I'm here to be a receiver of Dharma. That's my vow, right? I'm going to touch the essence of Dharma that I know is going to show up in the words. Someone's going to talk at me, you know. But I am aware as a Zen practitioner that the words I'm going to hear are fingers pointing to the moon. They reference the truth, but they are not the truth, right? They point to the truth. Um, if I go deeply enough into my experience, I am going to have an experience of the truth, right? And because of the way this is worded, when you're listening to it, you can probably already pick up on how many senses are mentioned, right? We have touch in the first line, seeing, hearing, tasting, even, and also included is mind. Mind is a sense in Buddhism. There are six senses in Buddhism because mind is one of them. And so remember is referenced as well as something far beyond words, right? Imagination, concept, and then also, of course, beyond those things. So we really do see the connection going all the way back to the origin of this tradition, going, hey, the whole world is the gospel. The universe is that, or it is the Dharma. It is the truth. There isn't anything that isn't that. And so everything we're going to do references it, but we're trying not to mistake the reference for that which is referenced, right? We don't, as we always say, we don't mistake the finger for the moon, right? Or the word for what it calls us to witness. So all of our senses are being engaged here, and I love it for that reason. As we know, Zen is a very, very embodied practice, a very embodied practice right here, right now. The senses, the body, right? The bones, the meat. It's very, very carnal in that way, right? It's a very visceral kind of practice reminding us this experience, this body, this moment, this breath, this back pain, this is it, right? It helps us hopefully remember that this isn't a separation of something lofty and spiritual from that which is in some way lower or mundane or right. We naturally we do this. Human beings have a tendency to split their something that is holy from something which isn't holy, something which is mundane from something which is seen as sacred, and that usually shows up as something earthly and body bound and something transcendent. We love that split. It shows up in every religious tradition, Zen included. But Zen does spend a lot of time going, there's got to be a way we can recognize our tendency to split our spiritual life from our regular life, because those are not two lives, right? So even having, here's the Dharma talk is about to happen. We're about to open the sutra. We're about to open the teaching. Body, 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 body. Well, body, 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 mind, right? Brain. So, wow, just to even have that idea woven in, right, is really, really important for us as Zen practitioners. What a beautiful reminder, too. I really like that. I really like the idea that the Dharma is going to show up in the form of words, but it's also going to show up in the form of what I'm smelling, tasting, touching, seeing, hearing, you know. Maybe the Dharma talk I leave with is the birds I can hear outside of the Dharma hall window, right? And so there's something really powerful about that, and very egalitarian, right? Dharma way, way, way bigger than all of the fingers pointing at the moon, including Buddhism, right? Buddhism and the thing we call Buddhism is kind of the smallest form Dharma can possibly take, right? The most limited. Um, Whereas the sense gates open us up, right? In a way that words don't always. So, anyway, print it out, put it on your bathroom mirror. So here's our themes. This is just me. I don't know that this, I don't know that other people see it this way, but as I spent all these years with this verse, I'm like, oh, this first line seems to be about that. This seems to be about. So these are just my ideas. You get to spend time with this sweet little poem. It belongs to you, after all, right? This poem belongs to you, so you get to print it out and put it on your bathroom mirror, and chant it for a month, and then decide that Busho isn't even close. He's got a whole different thing going on, and you've got a very different relationship with it. So these are just my thoughts. It strikes me that the first line, so rare to touch, a deep and subtle Dharma, that feels to me like an expression of wonder. It feels to me like an expression of gratitude. Neither of those things are mentioned, of course. Personal experience and emotions are usually not mentioned specifically in Zen scriptural stuff we would use in a service, liturgical scripture, usually not. And yet, oftentimes the word choice is referencing an emotion, or kind of implying one. And oh, it's so rare. It's so rare to touch a deep and subtle Dharma. You can kind of feel, there's an appreciation, there's a gratitude, there's a wonder. Wow, this is a really special thing that's about to happen, right? We can see the truth of that in our own lives. We can allow Dharma to mean something much bigger than just Buddhism here. But we can see the truth in that. um, when we realize it's actually extraordinarily unusual to have a receptive heart, to see a really deeply receptive heart in a human being that is opening itself to wisdom, wanting to learn, wanting to expand, wanting to breathe more deeply into the wonder, right, of what it is to be alive. Really rare to touch something deep, something subtle. Is that deep and subtle thing ever absent? Of course not, nor is it a thing, right? But that moment of receptivity being met with um, a moment of something being offered, that's pretty rare. Again, it's always here, always, always. So the so rare to touch to me feels more like this is the state of the heart of the person who is listening. This is our vow as listeners. This is our vow as students, right? We're all students. I'm going to remember my receptive student heart. The Dharma is always happening, but I'm really going to remember today. My vow is to remember today my receptive student heart because it is really rare, right? A deeply grateful, deeply permeable, deeply responsive student heart. Oh, precious, so precious, very rare and precious. So that experience we have, all of us have this experience in our lives of being in a state of awe or wonder, experiencing gratitude. These are hallmarks of actual spiritual practice. We become more prone to those types of experiences, I think, as practice continues, especially as practice deepens. More and more, we become receptive to the spontaneous arising of just kind of being caught by the miracle of everything. That seems true. That seems true to say. The longer and more deeply we've been practicing, the more often we are to be kind of almost arrested by the majesty of all of it. Oh my goodness, what a miracle. To get out of bed, to take a breath. Wow. Those are hallmarks of very genuine practice. Gratitude doesn't have to be reduced to some sort of kind of spiritual currency that we can reproduce. Um, if that makes sense, sometimes the way we talk about it, we can almost cheapen it with sort of like, oh, this is something I can cultivate and keep in the bank, or it's something to be grasped, or uh, I'm not sure I'm conveying that really well, but I'm a great believer in gratitude practice up to a point. I think what we're describing here is the vow to put myself in a state of receptivity and then allowing whatever emotion arises to arise. Yeah, that feels a little more like Dharma to me. So gratitude and wonder. I think that's an appropriate first line. This is kind of like at the family reunion before we have dinner, and we're all gonna take a breath and look around and go, what a miracle it is that we're all here together. Wow, look at all of us. Here's this moment. It's one of those times you take a deep breath and look around and go, wow, here I am. This is the thing, you know? And so to put a reminder of that before a Dharma expression it is just kind of a great way of taking a breath, looking around and going, this is an unusual thing that's happening. And it's a precious and special thing. I'm grateful to be part of this. Yeah. Um, the second line to me feels like it's engaged. It has a direction and it has an action. That's how it feels to me. Like it has a direction and an action. I, as a Zen student, am going to see this. I'm going to hear this. I'm going to remember this. I'm going to become this. I've got a thing to do here. Even if it appears passive, I'm just going to sit and listen to someone talk. Um, I like that it gives me a thing to do, essentially. There is a directionality. Sure, Dharma is everything all the time, forever. I get it. But I'm going to put myself in alignment with it. I'm going to engage with it. I'm making a choice. There's a directionality there to it. And I'm even going to list some of the stuff. I'm going to see it. I'm going to hear it. I'm going to remember it. I'm going to become it. Some of that stuff I have more agency, at least more direct agency over than others. But I am here to punch in. I kind of like this. Like, I'm here to punch in. I'm punched in. right? I like that. It is. It's just like Zazen. Like, we're not here to punch out. I'm here to punch in. The bell rings and it's like, oh, wake up, right? Straighten your spine. Pay attention, you know? Pay attention. That's kind of what it is. I'm going to pay attention. I'm really going to dial in here. Oh, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful to me. Um, it's also about relationship because what is being offered has always been here. And so, in order for me to have that thing to do, in order for me to do the thing I'm vowing to do, um, I am the active principle, right? There's a relationship, me and Dharma, but I am the active principle. Having it to see and hear, remember, and become. I'm the one who's going to move toward it in relationship. Does that kind of make sense? I actually kind of like that. Um, as I said last month, I really like that this whole thing, all four of these little lines, this whole verse really is about if you're the student in the Dharma hall, it's all on you. It's all on you because it's easy to misunderstand, especially the educational model we were all raised in. I go into the room and I sit down, and then somebody who's, you know, the teacher or the professor or the, whatever, they have something and they're going to give it to me. And my job is just going to thank you. And, you know, that's cool. I get that model has its place. But here, right, the onus of the learning is entirely on the person sitting, right? Like you're the one who's going to see it. You're going to, whether they give it or not, is not even the point. You're going to see it. You're going to hear it. You're going to remember it. You're going to become it. In fact, in a couple of lines, we're going to remind you it's beyond words. It isn't even what they're saying. It's what they're referencing that you're never separate from. So you're the active participant, right? Um, I have here in my notes, I had forgotten about this, but this is really cool. There's a great old, this would have been China, I think, a great old interchange from China recorded in, I don't know, forgive my references, my referencelessness. I'm not a scholar. I'm just, a practitioner. There's a wonderful interchange. I think this is from the Roaring Stream. Some of you know the Roaring Stream. It's a collection of Zen interchanges. It's been around for like 50 years. It's one of the earlier published books of Zen exchanges. I'm pretty sure it's probably 50 years old. Anyway, a monk asked Gensha, here the Gensha would be the name of the teacher, how do I enter the way? The way, of course, is capitalized. It's the Dharma, the Buddhism, you know. The way would be the Tao, but because this is China, but Buddha, Dharma, Tao kind of used interchangeably in the word way. How do I enter the way? Gensha replied, do you hear the stream? Yep. Enter there. That's the exchange. How do I enter the way? How do I become a Buddhist? How do I come in contact with the Dharma? How do I relate to the truth? How do I have a contact with the absolute? You can feel all those things are kind of implied in how do I enter the way? How do I start? How do I do this great grand thing? The activity of enlightenment. How do I do that? Oh, do you hear the sound of the stream? You know, enter there. The sound of the stream. It's a beautiful exchange. It fits our topic perfectly, doesn't it? Instead of, okay, here's the book, you got to read the book and you're going to have to memorize these verses. Oh, and there's all these interchanges you got to memorize, and there's all these terms you got to learn. There's this whole complicated thing. This is Buddhism, it's religion. There's all these things you go, oh, and there's a robe you're going to have to wear. Oh, geez Louise. Yeah, wow, what a project. Entering the way. Oh, dear Lord, it's going to take 10 years. Here we go. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Instead, I'm just reminding you, monk, of your immediate sense field. Your immediate sense field, the sound of the stream. That's the entry point. That's it. It's beautiful, isn't it? Right? That the Zen teacher refers to something that's already happening, a human experience. Just a human experience. You're hearing the stream. Were you aware you were hearing the stream? Probably not until I said, do you hear it? Oh, yeah, I guess I do. There, you're awake. It was happening. You weren't paying attention. Now you are. There. That's the practice. That's the way. That's the whole thing. You're awake. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Could have been anything. Do you see the wall behind me? Do you feel the tug of gravity on your bones? Do you feel how still the floor is underneath your feet? Can you taste, a little bit of breakfast left in your mouth? Do you smell the lilacs? Doesn't matter what it is. Enter there. So this verse has that same invitation to us. It really is going out of its way to make sure we know. Um, the talk, the Dharma talk, the opening of the sutra, is not separate from all of the things around that sutra. The sounds, the smells, the tastes, the memories, what brought you here, all that stuff, right? It's not apart from karma. It's not apart from body. It's not apart from our humanity. Don't separate it. You're going to have thoughts, you're going to have impressions, you'll have ideas, you'll have beliefs. It's just the way we're being invited to be present to it. The way we're invited to be present becomes that's the Dharma, not the thing we're present to, so much as the way we're present to it. Did you just catch up with the stream? Oh, there we go. Ah, there. Isn't that nice? That's really beautiful, actually. And we still have two more lines to go. Oh dear. Hmm, I'm torn. I'm torn. I tell you what, I'll sum it up really, really quick, and then we'll move on to something else next month. I don't know that I have another half hour left in me on this thing, so I'll be really quick to wrap this up. The third line takes me to aspiration and vow. That's kind of its own thing and is probably self-evident to all of you because of the word. It's right in there. We vow. There is an importance on the plurality. Some translations of Opening of the Sutra has a singular subject there, I vow to, which is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. Here we have this translation uses we vow. That in a literal way, yeah, usually this is recited by many people at the same time in the same space, so we make sense, right? I would also make sense in that setting, but I on a kind of mundane level, yeah, the plurality of people, many people all saying the same thing at the same time, and it's a sangha expression, right? It isn't my individual vow, it's our vow. That all of that is true. That's beautiful. But also to make sure that we remember the boundarylessness of what we're being reminded to be in relationship with. The plurality of things isn't just humans all doing the same thing at the same time in the same space. It certainly isn't just Buddhism or Buddhists. We is the collective. And the collective isn't well, you know what Zen does with this stuff, right? When I say we, there isn't anything left out of that. This is the vow of creation. This is the vow of all things. This is the clothes you're wearing and the floor you're standing on and the trees outside the window and your great, 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 great grandmother who you never met and who doesn't have a name to you. It doesn't matter. There's no boundary around the we. Never has been a boundary. How could it be? This is you being a temporary vehicle, a conduit for this is the great vow of everything. I'm going to wake up. It's the nature of things is to become more complex, to become more aware, to become more awake. It's Buddha nature, right? Tathagata Garbha, we call it in Sanskrit, the nature of things to wake up. Buddha nature, the seed of Buddha that's in everything. We vow, we. So even when I fall down on the job, which is usually going to take about 2 minutes before that mind starts to wander and off I am to the races, there's something else. I am part of something very, 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 very big. So we vow to taste the truth that is right here, and yet so far beyond words. That theme, that fourth line has, to me, the theme of immediacy, non-conceptual immediacy. Dharma isn't something I can study or experience in the past. It's not something I can study or experience in the future. Right here. Taste. That's why all these senses are mentioned. Because you can't have a sensory experience 10 seconds ago, and you can't have a sensory experience 10 seconds from now. It's not possible. Right? I know how firmly we believe in past and future, even though we hear over and over and over, no past, no future. You can't find the edges of the present moment. There is only the present moment. We hear it over and over and over. We very stubbornly cling to our belief. No, the past is real. I'm positive of it, and the future is real. I'm positive of it. Using sense terms brings us back to the immediacy of the moment that is right here. And then finally, it falls off entirely into, and yet it's also far beyond the words that I'm going to hear. So, the spirit behind this opening the sutra chant, all of us are gathered. Somebody is about to give a talk. This helps us put ourselves in the right frame of mind. This is pretty typical in a religious setting for there to be some sort of verse, some sort of ritual action that we take before the Torah is lifted or the gospel is opened or the book is read from. This is pretty typical. This is the Zen equivalent of that. So rare to touch a deep and subtle Dharma. We're about to hear the big thing. It's very, very cool. It makes sense to me. It helps put our hearts in alignment with what's about to happen. But when we pay a lot of attention to what's subtly being woven into these four lines, it becomes a template for our practice everywhere. It isn't just about Buddhist Dharma in words. It becomes a trust in the experience I am having as an expression of everything. And that's in no way limited to Buddhism or Buddhists. It's in no way limited to the Dharma Hall. It's certainly not limited to the expression of language. So I'll go back to my beginning admonition, and this will be my my send off. Consider having a relationship with this verse. Consider memorizing it or consider putting it up someplace that has an importance to you as an invitation for you to remember the preciousness of what it is to be a human being, to remind you your practice is happening all the time, to remind you it's a mark you can't miss, the mark of Dharma. You can't miss it. You either remember or you don't. That's okay, right? That everything you're doing is included within that field. This expands the field of our practice and usually helps plant the seeds a little more deeply in our lives than if we're just doing reading and we're just doing meditation that's confined to a certain space and a certain time. This is one of those little tendrils that helps Dharma root itself more deeply in our lives. So I encourage you, fall in love with the opening of the sutra and see what it does for you. That's as much as I got for you. Thank you for hanging in there a couple extra minutes. I really appreciate that. We can do something else next month. So I will stop the recording and wonderful to see you. I'm glad you're here.